Thank you for joining me for another Quick Hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn. With me today, I have Bill Dolan. He is a virtual event director and video producer at Spirit Media, where he does Emmy-nominated TV, live, and marketing strategist work. He is an author and a coach, and he is helping people promote their brand stories. I have Jim Lee. He's a financial futurist at StratFi, where he has 30 years experience, and he is the author of the book Foresight Investing, a complete guide to finding your next great trade. And I have Atif Aga. He is a technology specialist doing data analytics. He's also an avid runner, and he is in Chicago. The question that I have for the three of you: where is the line between deprioritizing something and feeling lazy for not getting it done? Bill, you offered to kick us off. Ball's in your court.
Well, this is a great question, and one of those that I think we all face, but often subconsciously. One of the things we'd shared before we started was the recognition that sometimes we do things because we're busy. And in fact, we're not really busy. We're just procrastinating. And when you get that sense, and you mentioned something very, very funny, which I loved, is that point in the day when you say, no, I've decided I'm going to empty my dishwasher. And you pause, you say, wait a minute, where does this fall on the priority list? What am I really doing? And that was tragically funny and real. So the way I address this question, and I do it with my team all the time, is I ask this question: what is mission critical and time sensitive? And when I say mission critical, it means, of course, that we started with some sense of what is our mission overall? What is our mission to accomplish today? If we are not accomplishing that mission, we have to say, what are we doing that's robbing us from that? And which means, yes, we might have to deprioritize that. The other thing is the timing piece. Is it mission critical or time sensitive? And the piece about time sensitivity is not just, wouldn't it be nice, or gee, I ought to, or someday I will, but to say, have I made a promise? And the difference between a priority that's just a sense of urgency or a priority that's based upon a promise and a commitment you have made is really an act of integrity. And when you do that, it will deprioritize a lot of subconscious wouldn't it be nice ifs. And it might mean, guess what? I might not empty my dishwasher before the end of the day. And I'm willing to live with that.
I think it's really an interesting topic, especially at a time where we're moving into a new year. And a lot of people are making their list of things they want to accomplish next year. And a lot of time, we hear this a lot where, we make a really fancy list that we want to do, and we're very enthusiastic about it. And then we start falling out of like, okay, maybe I can't do this. I can do that as time progresses. The key, in my opinion, again, I think it's an interesting topic. In my opinion, the key is really knowing what is important, why it's important, understanding why I want to do something. And once that why is very clear, I don't think it will be that easy to just strike it off the list, say it's not important anymore, because you know where you want to go. If you're procrastinating, like Bill, you mentioned, you'll know that you'll be honest to yourself and you'll know why it's happening and what are you doing really.
I really like the framework that Bill put out. Is it important? Is it urgent? But also, is it a promise? Which I think makes it important. And then the third thing that I would add to that is, am I the best person to do it? Or is there someone else who would be better at it or more appropriate for it?
For me, and I think that you guys may all know, I'm a list maker. I literally write things on paper and I mark things off as I go. And I have a rule for myself that if something moves from one list to the next list to the next list 3 times, I then decide, am I going to do this now, or am I going to not do it? Am I going to, give it to someone else? Is it just not important? And there are things that have been moved 3 times. And then I just decide, you know what? That's not going to be a thing. I had someone give me a whole bunch of feedback on my LinkedIn profile and was like, oh, you could change all these things. You'll get so many more searches. And it got moved from list to list. And I just decided, you know what? Clearly, this is not a priority for me. I'm not going to do it. It needs to not be on my list. I still have the things. I saved them. So if I ever decide, oh, I'm going to go spruce up my profile, I have her feedback, but clearly that wasn't going to get done. And I just had to decide that that's how it was going to be.
And again, I want to just bring up, I think we also live in information overload time. There's so many things we can do with our lives and with ourselves and with so many books we can read and so many things we can accomplish. And I think it really, again, comes down to, are we sincere and honestly reviewing what we prioritize? And if we haven't really done it, are we evaluating why? Why are we not doing it?
I think related to that is the either subconscious or conscious interpretation of, is this a high yield activity? Beyond the, is it mission critical and time sensitive? And Jane, I love the question you ask is, should I be the one doing this? Which is a fabulous question. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. And I literally can look and kind of count the days and say, well, if this is what time I have left, what can I do in this next chapter of my life, this next season of my life, that's going to be higher yield? So I find myself deprioritizing a lot, pulling a lot of tasks off. And instead of celebrating the illusion of getting stuff done, I look at, how can I use my life to multiply multipliers? How can I move the equation of my activities from plus signs to multiplication signs? And when I change that dimension, it removes a lot of things off the list really fast. And it keeps me focused on those higher yield activities instead of falling under the pressure that says, oh, you should be this, or you ought to do this. Well, the oughtas, for the most part, are usually driven by people who want to sell me something, not someone who wants to help transform me and transform the lives that I've been entrusted.
I bet that helps too with the guilt of deprioritizing something or choosing not to do it. You don't feel guilty about not doing it then.
Oh, yeah. In fact, in many ways, it's a celebration, because sometimes your priorities hit you in the face, and those things that aren't important equally hit you in the face.
Yeah. Bill, I think you bring a great point. Are we always in a reactionary state, whatever life's throwing at us, or we're taking a step back and evaluating, okay, are my priorities right? Maybe I have a regular touch point of looking at it and say, well, what is the most important now? What have I learned in a month? And why should I reprioritize everything that I prioritized maybe 2 months ago?
I feel like it's easy to get into a rut where you're just doing the things as they come at you, and being willing to take that step back and say, wait a minute, why am I doing these things? Why do I have guilt around them not getting done? I have a client who is a high level female executive, and she feels guilty about the fact that she has someone coming in to do her laundry, and she doesn't want her family to know. And I'm like, why? What's going on there? Why do you feel like laundry should be a priority for you?
And we also make a lot of things as a priority, and then we fail, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, is we're just not getting it done. Okay, I knew we'd not be doing it. And then that's the thing that's in some ways is comforting. Okay, I made a great list, I'm going to do it. And then you end up not doing it. And you're like, I knew I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, do you not put it on the list then? Do you go to write it down and be like, that's not going to be a thing, I'm not even going to put it on the list?
It takes a great amount of focus. And I think, again, understanding to get to that point where you are that sincere and honest with yourself. Am I really not going to do it? Okay, like you said, I'm not the right person for it. I'm not going to do it. I've never prioritized running a triathlon. I know I'm not going to be the right person for it. I can make a goal.
That's interesting, because I have a volunteer thing that I do. And I recently told them, I said, look, I know that you need this to be done, but my willingness to volunteer to that extent isn't a thing. Do not give that to me. I'm not going to do it. And as a volunteer, I think that's a really hard thing to say. But I was like, if you give that to me, we're all going to just feel guilty and it's not going to get done.
It takes a great amount of self-awareness and really knowing what is important for you. And as we, I think, mature and get more aware, we know what's more important. Like you mentioned about changing a plus sign to multiply. I know what is important, and I can evaluate that better now, but maybe not 20, 30 years ago. I mean, that's the key thing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that is our 10 minutes. So I'm going to cut us off there. I do think that deprioritizing things is a super important, because you can't prioritize if you don't deprioritize. And I don't think that we spend enough time as a society kind of talking about that. So thank you for having this conversation with me and talking about how you manage it in your lives. I appreciate it. And I look forward to speaking to each of you again really soon.